Is Airbnb's $99 stock price a good buy right now? I mean, the stock just recently IPO'd and it's already at an all-time low. But does this scream opportunity? Or, no man, it's going down to zero? Well, in this video, we're gonna try and predict Airbnb stock price from now till 2030. And honestly, I think it's pretty darn interesting. Hey guys, I'm Curious Pejjy, and I'm a very curious guy. I'm curious to know if Airbnb's $99 stock is a good price to start a position now for the next 5-10 years and onwards. And to be straight up and honest with you guys, I was a heavy investor in Airbnb until I sold it at the highs and went all in into Tesla. But I'll explain at the end why I did that. But before we dive into the prediction, let's first talk about Airbnb. So everyone knows Airbnb, and if you don't, well, it's pretty much a platform where you can rent out houses, mansions, condos, villas, cottages, rooms, and many more things for vacation or business purposes. In other words, a disruptor for hotels. I even made an Airbnb video in my hometown in Toronto where I went to 4 different locations ranging from $100 a night to $400 a night. Pretty much showing you guys what you get for those prices. It was a pretty fun experience, and if you guys want to check it out, check the video out. It was a lot of fun. But in a nutshell, that's what Airbnb is, and they're in a space where it's gonna grow very nicely. How nicely? Well, just this quarter alone in 2022, they had over 100 million nights and experiences booked for the first time. That's huge. That means over 100 million people have booked with Airbnb this quarter. I mean, the first 3 quarters of 2022 alone. I mean, that's pretty impressive. But what's even more impressive is that Airbnb's goal by 2028, they want to reach that number, that 100 million in a quarter, to 1 billion in an entire year, not compounded, in 1 year alone. So in 1 year, 1 billion people are going to book through Airbnb app. I mean, that's insane. Hey man, talk about growth, and sheesh, I don't doubt that. However, reaching deep into Airbnb and trying to find exciting news and plans, future plans for Airbnb, well, I couldn't really find any. Until I realized Airbnb is the future plan. The fact that I can rent out a home, house, condo, or cottage, or villa, or whatever I desire instead of a depressing hotel, that is a big difference. In my opinion, and what I experience, is that it's a whole different vibe, it's a whole different feeling, and it's a whole different experience. You literally feel at home, unlike a hotel. Now, I did find some interesting things on Airbnb when I was doing a little bit of research. Things like upgrading and expanding, new perks. But the most interesting thing that I found is what the CEO of Airbnb said. He said that since a lot of jobs don't require you to be in office anymore, and you can practically work from anywhere that has access to an internet connection, that means a lot more people are able to travel and work from home, pretty much anywhere. Now, although this is a very strong point and Airbnb will greatly benefit from this, I kind of have to argue with this point. First off, yes, a lot of jobs now are flexible. You know, you can work from home, come to office maybe 2-3 times a week, and then go home the rest of the weeks. Also, not to mention now that companies are now reducing their work week from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, which is honestly pretty darn blessed. But at the same time, as we go back to normal, a lot of companies are gonna ask their employees, and are asking their employees, to come back to the office, or else. Companies like Tesla, Apple, and many others. Although there is a pushback from employees, I mean, pretty strong pushbacks from employees, but something tells me that they're probably gonna end up back in the office after this recession. Obviously not how it was back in 2019 or pre-pandemic, but a good chunk, a good amount of it. All right, so that's a little bit about Airbnb, a little bit of the future plans. Enough chit-chatting. Let's go into the prediction. All I ask in return is a like and subscribe if you haven't already, man. Come on. Let's go. Just to make another note, guys, I'm not an oracle, okay? I'm not psychic. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me to tell you guys that this is the stock price that's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. This is all a prediction. I'm not a financial advisor, so take all this with a grain of salt. Do your DD and enjoy this video. It's meant for entertainment purposes and for you to get an idea what the stock price could be, not will be. All right? Let's get into the video. So this is the chart that I made to predict Airbnb's stock price. I'm going to quickly go over it so you guys can understand what's happening here. So in 2021, peak price was 207, and right now the current stock price as of this video, which is on a Monday, June 20th, is about $99 per share. So more than half, more than 50% down from its all-time high. So it's not bad. I mean, it's a good price, I'm not gonna lie. But is it actually a good price? Well, let's find out. So here we got experiences and nights booked. As we can see in 2021, over 300 million experiences and nights have been booked in Airbnb. Gross booking value, or JBV, in the millions obviously, was about almost $47 billion. So that's pretty crazy. And if you do the math here, each night costs about $156 a night. So that's on the average in 2021. Which, by the way, 2021, man, it was still a heavily restricted year. Still needed PCR tests to go places. A lot of countries were still shut down. Right now, the only country that we know that's been shut down is in China because of COVID. Other places in the world are loosening up restrictions. So that's very good news for Airbnb, but we'll see how that's going to pan out as we go forward. GBV, or gross booking value to revenue percentage. In other words, how much percentage from the GBV equals to the revenue. And in 2021, it was 12.773%, which would give us a total revenue of almost $6 billion in 2021. And net profit or profit margin, it was negative 6%. Now let's quickly look at Airbnb's balance sheet. I just want you guys to look at the gross profit on this. Look at this. It's literally 80%, 75 to 80%. I mean, these are crazy numbers, but the operating expense are also crazy numbers. It pretty much eats away from the gross profit, which you would end up with a negative. But as we go forward, and you'll see, economies of scale is in the benefit of Airbnb. So the more they will do bookings, the more profit they will be. But you'll see how it all pans out. Net income, which was $352 million, shares outstanding of 633 million, and an earnings per share of negative 56 cents. That gave us $207 per share and a market cap of over $130 billion. I mean, the stock price at the peak was trading at over 20 times revenue. It's not bad. It's better than most speculative stocks, because when a company is not showing any profit, they're known as speculative because they're not making any money. How can you know when you know when they will make money? But trading at 20 to 25 times, it's actually not that bad for a revenue, especially with a company like Airbnb that's going really fast. But let's move on to 2022 and onwards, and let's see what we can get. The best place that I found for the future predictions was simply Wall Street's. From 2022 to 2024, whatever they were predicting, I put it here. So in revenue, we have 8.2 million in 2022, 2023, almost 10 billion, 2024, almost 12 billion. And net income, we have 1.3 billion. So they're seeing in 2022, this year, they're going to be profitable. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this year is going to pan out. And honestly, I do believe them because, man, everyone is going on vacation. I mean, right now we're in June. And Jesus Christ, man, I'm working in the Middle East. There's no one here. Everyone's gone. And I'm jealous because I want to go too. But anyways, I mean, traveling is big. Airbnb is having a lot of business. And so we can expect this year's going to be a very good year for Airbnb. So 1.3 billion almost in net income makes sense to me. And next year is 1.6.5 billion. And in 2024, almost 2.2 billion. So they're saying they're going to continue growing profits after this year. So that's very good. And what's interesting here is that the profit margins, you know, we have 2022 and 15%, and then 17% in 2023, and then 18% in 2024. So literally growing 1% every single year. So that's quite a bit interesting. Now we have to find out how many experiences a night books would this equal to. Doing a little bit of the math, because their goal, remember, their goal was to have 1 billion bookings or experiences booked by 2028. That gave me a 20% compounded rate every single year from 2022 all the way to 2028. And when we put that into the formula, we can see by 2028, it's more close to 1.1 billion, but nonetheless hitting the 1 billion mark. And if we continue that to 2032, we can see that growth exponentially going up to 2.2 billion bookings by 2032. That's crazy if that happens. But if they do 360 million bookings this year, that would give it a gross booking value of almost $69 billion. And for 2023, it'll jump up to over $85 billion. And then 2024, almost $107 billion. Each night drastically increases from 156 to 191 almost. 2023 goes up to 196.57, which is just absolutely crazy. And 2024 will be $205 per night. So people are willing to pay more. So that's crazy. I want you guys to look at this chart. In 2020, they had over 103 million bookings. The gross booking value was almost at 24 billion. The total revenue would give us 3.4 billion. That would give us a conversion rate of 14% from GBV to total revenue. Do that for 2021, it was 13%, and in 2022, this year, they're saying 12%. So it looks like the more bookings that they have, the lower the percentage they make on revenue. So that's pretty interesting. So what I did was that instead of going down 1% at a time from 2023 all the way to 2032, I went down by 0.5% just to keep things conservative. I know they will plateau somewhere and they will just stay there at 1 percentage point. But because we don't have much information and we only have a couple of years to work with, I'm gonna keep it conservative and keep bringing the numbers down by 0.5% up until 2032. So as you guys can see, in 2022, the GBV to revenue was 12%. And in 2023 was 11.5%, and 2024 was 11%. That's how we get these revenue numbers. Now, the profit margin is pretty darn interesting. As you guys can see, by 2022 is 15%, then 17%, and 18%. It seems like every single year they're going up, they're increasing their profit margin by 1%. And that makes a lot of sense because economy of scale really benefits Airbnb. And so what I did was that from 2025 all the way to 2032, I added 1% every single year. But I stopped it at 25% by 2032 and 2031, because we know at this point that if they can generate a lot of bookings and a lot of revenue, their profit margins are going to be insane. It's probably going to be in the 30s, 40s, maybe even 50%, but 25%, let's keep it there. And before I forget about this, man, but this is a very important part, Airbnb doesn't own anything. They don't own the property. They don't own any land. They own nothing. So the expenses are only restrictive to their own business. They're selling an administrative cost or operating expense and things in that category. So if they can get to a point where they don't need to increase their expenses or selling an administrative cost and other expenses, operating expenses, then it's just pure profit for Airbnb. So that's some important things that I want to point out. Cash machine. So far, we figured out the experiences and nights, bookings, GPV to revenue percentage, which will give us the net income from its revenue. Now it's time to figure out the revenue, and then after that, find out what the GBV would be for those years. So let's start off with 2025. So for revenue in 2022 to 2021, there was about a 40% increase. And then they're saying it's going to be a 19% increase and then a 20% increase. We've already established what the percentage of net profit is going to be, so we're not going to touch that. It's the revenue. I believe and I have a strong feeling that Airbnb is going to do a lot more than this. So what I did was that I went back to previous years of what Airbnb did from 2018 to 2021. And these are the numbers that we got. Growth from 2018 to 2019, 32%. Then 2019 to 2020, negative 30%. We all know what happened in 2020, but then from 2020 to 2021, a 77% increase. Monstrous. Which would give it an average return of 26%. Given that 2020 wasn't a bad year, it would have been a lot more than 26% if you ask me. So although I do believe that Simply's Wall Street revenue increases are conservative, pretty darn conservative, I went with the flow, and instead of giving it out a crazy 50% increase year over year, I said 30% for 2025 and 2026. And from 2027 all the way to 2032, I gave it a straight 25% increase. Comment down below if you guys agree with that. I'm just keeping things conservative. So as we can see, in 2032, they would have a total revenue of $75.5 billion. And obviously a 25% margin on that is almost $19 billion in net income. So that's pretty darn impressive. The gross booking value that has to match these revenues go as follows. As you guys can see, 2025, 145 billion, then 200 billion in 2026, 261 billion 2027, 344 billion 2028, 2029, 455 billion, 2030, 617 billion, 2031, over 800 billion, 2032, they will hit over 1 trillion. Talk about economy of scale, but that's pretty darn impressive. And that would give us by 2032 an average each night $483 per night, which is absolutely insane, but this just shows you how many people are gonna be on the app. That's quite a lot. Now, some of you guys may say that, hold on a minute, no one's gonna pay almost close to $500 per night. That's not realistic. And you know what, guys? You may be right. I really don't know if that's even realistic by 2032, but it's all a prediction, and we're just here to see what could potentially happen. I mean, nobody ever thought that Tesla would be making millions of vehicles on a yearly basis 5 years ago today. Anything is possible, anything could happen. That's what I'm trying to say here. Now, moving on to the shares outstanding. Now, this is important because the more shares you have in a company, the lower the stock, and vice versa. So if we look at the history of shares outstanding of Airbnbs, we don't have much data because they just IPO'd, but we're gonna go with what we have. And as we can see in this little chart that I made here, is that they sold a lot of shares in 2021, which obviously when it reached an all-time high of 207, of course they would. On the quarterly basis, the average was 0.8%. We don't have yearly here because we don't have much data, but we're just gonna rely on the quarterly basis, and I just rounded up to 1%. So every single year, they're gonna dilute or sell 1% of shares from now to 2032. Although if they're making this much money, if they're making $19 billion in 2032, well, I mean, I highly doubt that they would even sell any shares. I think they would do more buybacks, but keeping things conservative. Putting that in, by 2032, we get 706 million shares outstanding. The EPS follows that as well. Almost 27 EPS by 2032. Comment down below if you guys agree with the EPS by 2032. All right, now it's time to figure out the stock price. If you guys aren't ready, man, well, smash that like button, and now you're ready. Let's go. So for 2022, I put a PE of 70. Right now it's trading around 85, and I think by end of this year it's going to be a record earnings, obviously. I put a PE of 70, and that will give you a stock price of $139 per share, with a market cap reaching almost $90 billion. But if the macro environment wants to be more moody, you could say, and it doesn't want to go up and it wants to continue going down on this bear market that we are now, let's say 60 PE, which would give it a stock price of $119 per share. And if the market drops even worse than that and goes even more crazy, I give it a PE of 50, which is $99, which is what it is now. So yeah, if we reach 50 PE with the 2022 earnings at the end of quarter four, this is the stock price, 99. But I'm more of an optimistic guy, so I'm gonna say 70 by end year, because come on, man, by end of the year, things should be a lot better, right? Right? In 2023, there's a forward PE of 55, but I gave it 60, and that will give us a stock price of $153 per share, giving it almost $100 billion in market cap. But let's give it a PE of 55, as it mentioned, as the forward PE, and that would give us a stock price of 140. But again, I'm more optimistic, 60 PE. I mean, 2023 is going to be also a good year for Airbnb, unless we have another pandemic, which that would not be good for Airbnb at all. In 2024, with a PE of 55, the stock price should be $182 per share, $118.5 billion in market cap. In 2025, because they are benefiting from economy of scale and they're hitting all-time records, I also gave it a PE of 55, which gives us an average stock price of $242 per share with a market cap of $160 billion. 2026, with a PE of 50, we get almost $300 per share with a market cap of almost $200 billion. In 2027, with a PE of 45, we get a stock price of almost $350 per share, and a market cap of $250 billion, which is absolutely crazy. In 2028, with a PE of 40, we get an average stock price of $400 per share and a market cap of $272 billion. Again, 2029, I gave it a 40 PE as well, which would give us an average price of $519 per share with a market cap of almost $356 billion in market cap, which is just absolutely insane. $100 increase in a flipping year. So that's crazy. 2030, with a PE of 35, we get a stock price of $600 and a market cap of $415 billion. In 2031, with a PE of 30, we get a stock price of $649 per share and a market cap of almost $454 billion. And a PE of 25, in the year of 2032, we get an average stock price of $669 and a market cap of $472 billion. So that's crazy. I mean, that's just insane. Honestly, it does look reasonable. It does look reasonable because look, if we look at 2021, screw it, let's just look now, $100 per share. If you buy now, potentially you can 6 to 7x your money by 2032, and that's a 10-year investment, and that's not bad at all. But obviously, man, this is only a prediction, nothing else and nothing more. Take this video as a grain of salt. More research is always needed, so don't forget to do your DD. But this is how the stock chart looks like. As you guys can see, it comes up from this 2022 slump and it slowly goes up. If they continue to hit record and improve and make a lot of money, make a lot more money, their margins increase, their revenue increases, their net income increases, and if they reach a point where they're just going crazy, economy of scale will be in their benefit. As you can see, it just goes up to the moon up until 2032, where it starts to slowly die down. But we all hope by then Airbnb has morphed into a whole different company, just like how Google was back in the day. They were just a search engine, but now they're a lot more than just a search engine. So we can potentially see that with Airbnb in the next 10 to 15 years. Now, my concern with Airbnb is that they have a huge operating expense. As mentioned before, they have an 80% gross profit margin, which is absolutely insane. But that also matches their operating expense, so it's not really that insane. They must and should lower their expenses as soon as they can if they want to impress investors, for them to invest in the stock to go higher faster, and obviously to become profitable faster too. But I think that's in the works, and that's my only concern. It's not the competition, it's not the hotels, it's not Expedia, it's not TripAdvisor. In fact, these guys should probably work with Airbnb before Airbnb takes a lot of their market share away. So yeah, they probably should work with them. Because honestly, man, from my experience and from people that I hear, it's honestly a brainless decision to go to an Airbnb than a hotel. Rent a whole house. The prices that you can get on Airbnb for a house is almost the same price as a flipping hotel, and you get a much better location. So honestly, a very brainless decision to choose Airbnb over hotels. Should you buy Airbnb stock now? Well, in my opinion, if you're in it in the long haul, 5, 10, 15 years from now, I think it won't be a bad idea to invest in Airbnb. Airbnb is positioned very well and poised to make big returns, like big time. You're gonna grow big time. Now, why did I sell all my Airbnb stock? Well, as you guys saw in the chart, Airbnb from now to 2032, you probably will get 6 to 7 times return, and that's pretty good returns, don't get me wrong. And although I am a big fan of Airbnb, I love it, I'm a big fan of it, I am a big fan of Airbnb, I really love their service and literally the whole idea of it. I personally see there's a lot more return with Tesla. Unlike Airbnb, Tesla is a revolutionary company that comes once in a while. The idea of climate change, global warming, autonomous driving, renewable and sustainable energy is something that I've always invested in even before Tesla. In fact, before going all in onto Tesla stock, 80% of my portfolio was in renewable energy stocks because I heavily believe, and I still do believe, that they are the future. And Tesla happens to be the company that's working on this the hardest and taking things to next levels and solving a lot of problems. And I personally want to be an investor in that. So that's why I sold out of Airbnb and I went pretty much more all in into Tesla. There's nothing wrong with Airbnb. It's a fantastic business. They will do fantastic in the long run. You'll have good returns. And overall, it's an awesome company and a stock to own. But I believe that actually running an Airbnb is a lot more profitable, more fun than actually owning the stock, which is quite boring. I mean, if you guys go to an Airbnb and become friends with the owners and they tell you how much they make, I mean, sheesh. I know some people, they left their jobs and they literally went all in into doing Airbnbs for a living. That's just crazy. But you know what else is crazy, guys? Tesla's Q2 earnings coming up. We all know it's gonna be terribly bad and it's gonna be very ugly, but how bad should you guys expect it? Well, check out this video. I predict what Q2 delivery numbers could potentially be by looking by how much productions they did every single month in Q2, as well as we do that in Q3 and Q4. Check it out, guys. It's pretty darn interesting. You won't be disappointed. Don't forget to subscribe, guys, and I shall see you guys in the next video. See ya.